The last skill we're going to look at is the overhand throw. The overhand throw is in the category of manipulative skills, which are the prerequisite skills necessary to partake in formal adult sports, which almost all formal adult sports require the manipulation of some type of object. The goal of the overhand throw is to propel the ball towards a specific target with the hand and the arm. When we look at when Maddie begins her throw, we see that she has her body turned mostly sideways. So she's actually facing, if she were to turn her head straight, she'd be facing in that direction, away from her body. So her torso is opened up, and she's going to throw at a 90-degree angle from the way that her torso is opened up to. So that is actually what we want, because most of the throwing power comes from the twisting action of the body. Whereas when we look at Mike's throw, he starts his throw completely squared up to the object. He's not turned at all, and that is a fairly common characteristic of a developing learner when they're just learning how to throw. A positive here is that both of our throwers are looking at their target. They're both concentrated on where they're going to throw, and that is another positive aspect that both of our learners have. During the throw, we can take a look at what the throwing arm of each thrower does. So when we look at our developed learner, Maddie, we see that her arm goes down and back, and then it comes over the top for her throw. That is what we want, and that is a characteristic of a developed thrower, because when the arm goes down and back, it gives it more of a smooth motion to get up and over the top. It gives it more leverage. When we look at what Mike does with his throw, he brings his arm straight up from his hip and then starts the throw from there, which is another characteristic of a developing thrower. They don't quite have it in their heads yet that in order to generate this power like Maddie has, you have to bring it back and then follow through on your throw. Getting that full range of motion in the throw is important. And now we can look at the feet. So what we see here is when Maddie starts her throw, she steps forward with the opposite foot than the arm she throws with. And that is what we want, because again, that encourages that twisting motion and lets the body naturally sort of follow the path of the twisting and getting the full range of motion. Whereas if we look at Mike's throw, we see that he steps forward with the same foot as his throwing arm. So that again kills that motion, and it's hard to get as much power. It's actually impossible to get as much power as you would if you stepped with the opposite foot. So we have Maddie's got her foot, the opposite foot than her throwing hand, and Mike is using the same foot as his throwing hand. Another aspect that's important for the throw is the transfer of weight from the back foot to the front foot. So when we look at how Maddie makes her throw, she starts with all her weight on the back foot, and then she steps into the throw with her opposite foot again, and by the end of the throw she's transferred all her weight to that foot. And that just helps sort of propel the body forward and keep the movement going forward, keeping all the momentum going into the throw. When we look at what Mike does during his throw, he starts with his feet square to the target, so he can't really place just by where his feet are, he can't really transfer the weight to a back foot because there is no back foot. So he starts off in a neutral stance and then just steps forward into the throw. And that is a fairly common sign of a developing learner as well, because they don't quite understand that transfer of weight will increase the power of their throw. So we have Maddie transferring the weight from her front foot back foot to her front foot, and Mike is just not transferring any weight at all. He's just stepping into the throw. One final aspect to look at during the motion of the throw is how Maddie rotates through the throw like this. So she steps forward, and then she rotates her hips first, and then her arm comes through. So it goes hips and then arms. She steps, her hips twist, and that generates a lot of the power, and then her arm follows through. So all the power in the throw comes from the step, twist, and the arm. The way that Mike has set this up, by not stepping with his opposite foot and not transferring any weight, he's made it impossible for that twisting motion to happen. He just stays square to his target. And so he can't generate nearly the amount of power that he could if he were to have corrected all of those things at the start of the throw. Both of our throwers release the ball well. You want to see in a developed learner to release the ball just in front of the head, and we can see that Maddie releases the ball right as it moves past the head. So right, it gets past her head and the ball is out. When Mike throws the ball, we can see that it goes right to his head, and he releases it right as his arm moves past his head. So both of the releases are good. The difference comes in the follow-through. So when Maddie makes her throw, her arm momentarily follows through to the target, and then she lets her arm come across to her other knee. It comes across her body, and it completes that whole body twisting motion that powers the throw. Because Mike has set himself up this way, he releases the ball well, and then his arm follows through slightly, but it follows through straight down, sort of in the direction of the target. And that's common in a developing learner because they're just trying to make their hand go towards the target in an attempt just to make the ball go towards the target. They think that if their hand just stays in that path, then it will make the ball stay in that path. And that might work, but it really sacrifices power. So there's a few things that we could do to help Mike with his throw. So off the beginning, we should get him to face sideways during his throw. So to do this, we could get him to we could draw a line or have a little marker on the ground where he puts both of his toes on the line. So he has to stand sideways in order to do that. So that it kind of creates a situation where if he wants his toes on the line, his body will have to face sideways. So the line would run along this way, and it would make him kind of turn his body and have both of his feet on the line like that. We also need to explain to him that his arm needs to make this motion, this downward and backward motion before throwing the ball, the one that Maddie makes here. So in order to do that, it may work just to use a verbal prompt and explain that the arm motion should be a circle. So it should come down and make a circle motion before it comes over the shoulder. And that may be enough just to help him correct that and to encourage him to do it that way. To make sure that Mike steps forward with his opposite foot, it may be enough just to put a spot on the ground where that foot has to land on. So we could say, when you make this throw, your right foot, with him it would be his left foot, has to land, let's say, there, so that he's not stepping through with his wrong foot first, and that he's actually stepping forward with the correct foot. It's also important to have Mike twist his hips first before his arm comes through. But his foot position and his arm motion should be corrected first, because without the proper foot position, it's not really possible for him to get that twisting motion. And finally, to correct his follow-through, we should encourage Mike to throw the ball and then try to reach across his body and touch his opposite knee. With these more sport-specific skills, it's also helpful to keep in mind that there are professional athletes on YouTube that you can show to the learners and show them the video and all of the things they're doing right, and maybe that could encourage them to try those things for themselves. So here's both throws side by side, and we can look at the difference. Okay, thank you.